For those of you who haven't had a chance to meet me yet, my name is Lindsey Stamm. I am the R3 coordinator here at Indiana for the National Wild Turkey Federation. In my line of work, I get a chance to see a lot of people shoot a gun for the first time, catch their first fish, or harvest their first animal. There's always a lot of excitement and passion that's centered around that. And I've had a chance to meet some really awesome people who are making a big impact in R3. Every now and then, you'll meet someone who just reminds you of why we got into this career to begin with. It reminds me why I will deal with downtown Indianapolis traffic to sit in an office all day and answer emails and sit in meetings. And that happened to me last September at a Women in the Outdoors dove hunt. I met a woman who came up to me and said, "This is what I've been looking for. I want to get involved in R3. This is what I'm passionate about. I just began hunting a few years ago and I want to pass this along." And so I am honored to announce our next keynote speaker, Ms. Cindy Stites.
I'm going to apologize if I'm sick. I got sick at the beginning of the week. It's the worst possible thing that I could have come down with this thing that I have going on. So I'm going to try to avoid any coughing fits, but if I have a problem, I apologize. The other thing I probably should say up front, the last time I stood in front of a group of people, I was in my 11th grade English class, and that was about 26 years ago. So the shaky voice, the red face, just roll with it. It's going to be all right. I got into hunting. 2012 was the first season that I went out, and I was a skeptic, to say the least. I was a kid that was outside all the time. I always played outside with my brother, catching crawdads in the creek, building forts in the woods. We were outside, much like the first lady said, we were out more than we were in, and we preferred it that way. But, hunting was never anything that we really discussed in my house. My dad had firearms. He had a bow. He did some target shooting. He taught us how to fish. I've been fishing my entire life, but hunting wasn't something that we talked about. Nobody was against it, we just didn't do it. So when I met Chance, who is my partner for 6.5 years now, he proposed that I go hunting with him. And I said, absolutely not. I have no interest. I can't kill an animal. I'm an animal lover. I don't want any part of it. And he poked and prodded, and finally I said, okay, I'll go out and sit with you, and I'll see what it's about. So we went out, climbed up in a tree stand just to see, hey, if I could do it. Got up there, it was quiet, it was peaceful. He kept telling me to be quiet, and I kept asking questions. And the very first deer that I ever saw out of a tree stand was a piebald doe. And I don't know if you all know what a piebald deer is. Think of a paint horse. So we're sitting there, he nudges me, I look, of course, my woodsman skills are like, what? And then it blows, and I'm, shaking, and I can't understand what's happening. What's going on? And of course, the deer runs off. And he said, you just witnessed something that most people will never see in their lifetime. And you just saw it the first time in a tree stand. And I was like, okay, I'm intrigued. So after that, I'm going to kind of fast forward. He taught me how to shoot. When I first started shooting, I was shooting right-handed because I had played basketball right-handed. I swung the bat right-handed. I just assumed that I would shoot a gun right-handed. And I'm leaning over, with the wrong eye shut. And he's like, what in the hell are you doing? Like, I don't know. I'm shooting a gun. And he's like, no, you're doing it wrong. So we switched, and all of a sudden, here I am, hit the target. I'm like, well, this is better. This is all right. So Chance learned to hunt by doing. He didn't have really anybody that taught him. He had a guy that he worked with that kind of gave him some tips and pointers, but his method of teaching probably isn't one I would recommend for anybody else. Fortunately for me, it was what I needed at that time, and it worked. He gave me the lesson on how to shoot. He gave me a firearm to shoot. He said, there's a tree stand, figure it out. And I was like, do what? And so we went out in the woods, I climbed up and he took off. And that is how I learned to hunt. I went out every possible opportunity I could. I'd go down to his house. I lived in Bronxville, he lived in Danville. I'd drive down after work as fast as I could. Putting on his clothes, he's 6 foot, I'm 5'3", and I'm putting on his coveralls, and they're hanging to the ground, and I'm carrying a weapon, and I'm just like, oh gosh, this isn't mine. I got out there, and I would learn something each and every time. But I would also come home mad. I would come home so frustrated. I don't understand why I'm not seeing anything. I don't understand why they're seeing me first. What am I doing wrong? And he wouldn't say anything. He'd sit there and he'd let me whine and complain. And he'd say, okay, you want me to tell you what you did wrong? I'm like, and it was like that every time I came back to the house. I said, why can't you tell me this before I go? Why do I have to figure this out after the fact? He said, that's the only way you're gonna learn. So I stuck with it, and I think he taught me that way because A, it worked for him, and B, I think he knew I wasn't gonna quit. He knew that I was determined. I think he just felt that I had it in me that I could do it, and so he sent me out on my own. The first deer, I'll make this a short story, I won't go into too much detail because it's hilarious, but first deer I killed, I came home from hunting. He didn't go out that morning. I was ranting and raving, and finally he had enough. He's like, I don't want to listen to this anymore. Either quit or quit complaining. Because I can't. You're mad every time. So as he's giving me this lecture and I'm feeling horrible, I look out the window and there's 3 deer at the back of the hayfield along the tree line. I'm like, he's like, can I shoot one of those? And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, there's 3 deer, can I shoot one? He said, listen, if you can get outside, sneak out to my truck. He had an old beat-up white Chevy pickup truck at the time. Open my squeaky door, get my gun out, sneak around the house, and take a shot at that deer without you scaring it away, you can shoot that deer. I was like, yeah, it's on. So I run through the house, and I'm in jeans and a hoodie, and I pull his cowboy boots on, they're way too big, and I do all the things, and I sneak around the house, and he's standing in the bedroom window watching, and I get down on my knee, and the gun I had, I'd never shot before, and all I knew was from the Westerns, it was a lever action, so you do this, and it gets it ready to shoot, and sure enough, I did that, and I took a shot, and the deer just stood there. I missed. So Chance is pounding on the window, going, shoot! So I scoot forward, and I shoot again, and I made contact, and I got my first deer. But what's hilarious about that is Chance is standing in his underwear, looking out the bedroom window, yelling at me, and most people, their first deer story is not quite like that. But as far as being a hunter, I progressed pretty quickly through the stages of a hunter. There's the stages when people start as a young child. They do the shooting, and then they want to fill some tags, and they do the trophy hunting, and finally you end up in this conservation-minded mode. And I think I kind of ran really fast through all of that, and I started to learn that the more I was in the woods, it was probably the thing I needed the most in my life at that time, and still. Prior to meeting Chance, I was in an abusive marriage for 11 years. So I was getting it handed to me every day, physically, verbally, you name it, I took it. And when I walked away from that, finally, I had no self-confidence. I had no self-worth. I felt like I just didn't know what I was going to do. I kind of pulled back from everybody. I didn't really want to be around people. I learned being in the woods that the only way I was going to get that self-confidence back was to do something for myself. So every time I would sit out there and figure something out, like, okay, I think it's gonna come this way. And sure enough, when that deer walked by, I'm like, yes, okay, I'm getting this, I'm figuring this out. Every time I had a little accomplishment, and it didn't mean harvesting the animal, it just meant I could sneak into the woods quieter, I could get my tree stand quieter. Any of that, I felt I was getting myself back. The quietness, there's nobody yelling at me, there's nobody throwing things at me, there's nobody taking a swing at me. It was just quiet, it was peaceful. And it turned out to be so much more about just hunting. It turned out to be that, I guess hunting kind of saved me from myself. And I owe that to Chance, because if Chance hadn't prodded and poked and got me out in the woods the first time, a lot of the opportunities that I have now, I wouldn't have. The confidence that I have now, I wouldn't have. He taught me to get out there, and then I ran with it. And boy, did I run with it. We go to Wyoming now and hunt in the fall for mule deer. 2018 was just a crazy year for all of this, because it was a year that things kind of came full circle for me. I was invited to go to Wisconsin to Doug Duran's farm. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Doug Duran. He's a guest on has happened. I was invited to go to Montana last year to an all-women's deer camp. None of us knew each other. We only knew each other from Instagram. And everyone was questioning my sanity. They're like, why are you going to the mountains in Montana to camp with 17 other women that have rifles that you don't know? I said, well, it makes perfect sense to me. I think it sounds like a great time. So I drove across country by myself to go to Montana to hunt with these women. And I think probably the thing that affected me the most of that whole trip, the camaraderie was great. The stories at night in the tent of all, how they became hunters and why it's unique to hunt with women versus their husbands and their boyfriends. All that stuff was really cool. But the thing that probably made the biggest impact on me is when I was coming into Montana and it was just getting daylight, and I saw mountains for the first time. I'm an Indiana kid, I haven't traveled much, but I've always heard that mountains affect people differently. I started sobbing uncontrollably. And I was like, geez, what is wrong with me? And it hit me that my life is not where it was. And the situation that I had come from, I was so far removed from that now that it didn't seem possible that I could be in Montana, going to hang out with all these cool women, and that hunting got me there. So I called Chance. I just wanted to thank you for getting me. I couldn't even get the words out. He's like, oh my God, hang up and just watch the road. I'm like, if it wasn't for you, he's like, hang up. So it was kind of funny because, it just hit me that being in the outdoors, hunting, just being a part of that whole community had completely changed my life for the better. I was in a place that I didn't know that I'd ever get out of, and now, oh my gosh, the possibilities are just endless, and hunting and being outdoors got me there. So going into the mode of conservation, I went from someone that was just all about hunting to like, okay, well, how do I give back? You can't just continue to take and not give something back. So I joined Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. I joined the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, the Sheep Foundation. Okay, elk and sheep are probably two animals that I'm never going to hunt in my lifetime, most likely. But why not do my part to take care of these animals? Why not do my part to contribute to the conservation of those animals? I mean, if I'm in it to hunt, I'm going to be in it for everything, whether I get to go hunt those animals or not. So 2% for Conservation is a really cool organization that you basically donate 1% of your time, 1% of your annual income, and you get 2% certified. That's really not that much. Donating your time, you definitely get more out of it than what you're putting into it, that's for sure. So I was asked to be a regional committee member for that organization a few months ago, which is a pretty cool honor for me. Hunting in Wyoming with Chance, it's just the best time. We didn't know anything about public land when we went out there the first time. We stumbled around, we had no clue. But now we have a good idea of how to do it. And this year I got to video him shooting his first antelope, which he was pretty stoked about. And then that same day we went back to the same land and we hiked in. We were in a walk-in area, which is public land. And when we got in there, we saw a mule deer bedded down, and there were 4 or 5 other deer with it. And he's like, just sit down right here. He's 307, 308 yards. He's like, this is your shot. I'm like, no, I'm not comfortable with that shot. That is not my range. And he's like, oh, come on, Nate, it's gonna be easy. Nope. He's like, okay, so we backtracked. We went in around this hill. We got up over the hill, and the deer's still laying there. There's 3 or 4 other deer standing up staring at us. I'm like, don't move. And he told me we were at like 260 or something like that. I start shedding all my gear. My binoculars come off, my rangefinder comes off. I'm on the ground, crawling on my belly, and through cactus and ants and sage and everything else. And I took almost 2 hours of stalking that deer on my stomach or my rear end, scooting across the grass, waiting for just the perfect time for that deer to stand up. And all the other deer that are around it finally kind of meandered off. And I look back, I didn't see Chance. He was so bored that he had went down because, he's like, what am I gonna do? And that deer stood up and I ended up taking the shot, and I killed that mule deer. And when we went back and ranged it, I was in at 215 yards, and that was exactly the shot that I wanted. I wanted between 200 and 220. And that was monumental for me because I stood my ground. I had the confidence to know finally exactly what I wanted to do. I knew what range I wanted to shoot the deer at, and I worked my tail off to get to that deer without it standing up, without getting busted from the others that were there. And that was probably the most proud I've ever been of how I finished a hunt. It wasn't ideal for him because he was laying down because he was just over it at that point. I think at one point he was so bored he even stood up and used the bathroom, and it didn't scare the deer off. So again, it's one of those opportunities that I never would have had. I never would have been out in this beautiful country in Wyoming looking at these deer, testing myself and testing my ability, crawling across the ground to take a shot on one of these animals. So I was very, very proud of that. So I told you that my dad never talked to us about hunting. And little do I know, my dad was an avid hunter when he was a kid. He hunted every single small game animal that you could hunt. And he did that all the way up through his early 20s. My oldest brother, Tim, wanted to go rabbit hunting. My oldest brother, mine was 13 years older than me. He wanted to go rabbit hunting with my dad, and he was maybe 5 or 6. So Dad said, okay, let's go. And they went out. They found a rabbit. My dad pulled up his gun. My brother had a meltdown. He's like, you're not gonna shoot it, are you? And my dad was like, that's rabbit hunting. That's what you do. And he's like, no, you can't shoot that. That day, my dad quit hunting, which when he told me that, it just floored me because I thought something that you loved so much, just like that, he quit for my brother. He said, well, I couldn't lie to your brother at the time. I was out doing something else, and if he found out, he'd be crushed. So after Dad told me all this at Christmas, I told him I was going to go squirrel hunting this year. And he's like, that's great. That was my favorite thing to do. That absolute favorite thing to do when I was a kid. We went every day. So on the way home, after I told him that, he runs back to the back of his house and he comes out with his 22. My dad had bought this 22 when he was 18. My dad is 78 years old. He still had the same 22 that he bought at a gun show when he was 18. And it was in mint condition. Well, this is the gun that I hunted with, and isn't here, look at the, hold it. And I'm looking at it, he gets his goofy hat out, and he's like, if you go out, you should wear this hat. You can get them at Target. They keep your ears warm. And I'm like, okay, Dad. So on my way home, I got to thinking about it, and I thought, you know, what would be wrong with asking my dad to go squirrel hunting? Well, I mean, the worst to do is say no. So I was driving home, I called him and said, Dad, go squirrel hunting with me. Oh, well, I don't know. I said, Dad, let's just go squirrel hunting. It'll be fun. Well, I don't know, I'll think about it. So a couple days later, I called, and my stepmom answered, and she goes, your dad's going squirrel hunting with you. I told him he didn't have to go to church on Sunday. Thanks, Rhonda. So he bought a license, and he came down on that, that following Sunday. And we went out to the woods. Chance went with us, and he went off one way, and my dad and I went off the other way. I got a goofy hat to wear with him, so we had our matching goofy hats on. And it was the best possible day of my life. My dad has been my best friend and my biggest fan. He raised me. He's been everything to me. And to go out and have that experience with my dad, when I first told him I was going to start hunting deer, he was excited, but he didn't tell me why. He didn't tell me that he had been a hunter his entire childhood and early adulthood. So now I understood why he was so excited. And we went out and killed one squirrel. It was a horrible day for squirrel hunting. But my dad and I tag teamed the squirrel because I shot it. I didn't get a good shot. It ran up the tree, and then my dad shot it with that .22 rifle that he had from when he was 18 years old. And he shot that squirrel. After that, we went and sat on a log, and we just sat there and talked for probably 30 or 40 minutes. He was telling me all kinds of hunting stories from when he was a kid, and why he loved it so much, and how much it's changed now. And I even took my phone and turned the video on and just set it next to me just to capture the conversation. Not to video him, but just so I'll always have that. And we went home and I said, hey Dad, you want the squirrel? Oh, Rhonda won't let me bring that in the house. I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna keep it. But a lot of people, when you talk to them about what is your dream hunt, what is the one hunt that if you could do, what is it? And you're gonna get people saying, I like to go to Alaska and hunt caribou. Or I'd like to go to Colorado and elk hunt, antelope in Wyoming. And for me, if you ask me that, I would say I already had it. I wasn't going to do this. But I would say to squirrel hunt with my dad. And I got my dream hunt. And it, that means more to me than any big game animal I'm ever going to get, because it took 50 years before my dad could hunt with his kid. And I'm glad that I gave that to him, but it probably means more to me than it did to him. So that was my dream hunt. And I want to pass that on to other people. Chance, his daughter, just turned 10, and she is my Velcro. She's my Velcro. And she wants to do anything that we do. And she's been exposed to hunting since she was a little bitty thing. When she was 3 and I first met them, they were gutting deer in the garage, and she's fighting the dog over parts. And I'm like, gee, what? I don't even know what I'm doing around these people. This was before I started hunting. I'm like, this is not something I want to get involved in. There's a 3-year-old in this little pink sweatsuit fighting the dog for parts to put it in the bucket. But she just went out this fall with her dad and sat in a tree stand and killed her first deer with a .243 rifle, all by herself. And I was more proud of that child for what she had just done than any animal that I will ever take. I would rather see her do that all day long than for me to ever kill anything ever again. It means that much to me to pass it on. So I'm going to wrap up here, but the thing that the extremes that I've gone to be involved, Chance gets so mad at me because I'm on my phone all the time. But social media, I've met so many amazing people through social that I wouldn't have met before, and it's all hunting industry people. It's afforded me opportunities like going to Doug's or going to Montana that I would have never had before. And it's not what I can get out of it, it's the people that I meet and sharing those experiences with them. And I have gone as far after being in the horticulture industry. This is my 23rd year working in horticulture. I'm an arborist, I'm a horticulturist. I just applied to college for the first time in my life to try to get a bachelor's degree in conservation. So, if you don't think it means something to me, that accepted as a whole other thing. But if I have the opportunity, it means that much to me. I want to do more. I feel like I've missed too much time already not to really take the bull by the horns and run with it at this point. So, thank you so much for having. I'm sorry if I rambled. I'm sorry for this whole voice thing I have going on today, but I do appreciate your time.